Get your stinking rat out. It's late night large.
Welcome to a late night large, pissing where it stands, because fuck it, nothing really matters anymore, does it? Sick of your shit is me, Aaron Bliss. Well, shitting in your sick is Mike Large. How you doing, Mike?
Yeah, all right. Just looking for that next puddle of sick, really.
Yeah, to make your mark.
Yeah.
Big news this week. So, to any newcomers, welcome to Lockdown Large. We have been keeping you abreast of everything related to lockdown and nice Beavis and Butthead moment there, Mike. We've been keeping you informed on everything related to lockdown life and what the government's doing in relation to it, or what it's not doing, etc., and what we're likely to experience next, according to the facts and the data and human behavior, predictability, etc. So we've had some big news this week. So you might, before we start, by the way, hey, if you enjoy this kind of content, why not subscribe? And hey, hit the little bell and you will know when we're next on. And by the way, we do also have a podcast that's not related to lockdown. We just talk about all kinds of subjects that we learn about on Wikipedia. So check that out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Anyway, this is about lockdown. If you remember the last episode, me and Mike were ripping into the worm, the ex-health secretary, who's now a shit stain in our memory banks. But, you know, you might have thought, now wank socks out of the way, the worst is over. No, because the worst is never over with Boris Johnson in charge. He's replaced him with Sajid Javid, or the Hood, as he's otherwise known. Sajid Javid, if you didn't realise, unfortunately, is one of the more crooked Tories in the cabinet, obsessed with making money at all costs. The kind of person who would literally sell his own granny to make another thou or so. And he's began his stint as health secretary, interestingly, Mike, because he's actually talked nothing like a health secretary. He's talking as if he's still the chancellor. So he's effectively in one of his first speeches, he's effectively, what the big takeaway was his quote about, we need to learn to live with COVID like we have done with the flu, to which thousands of people collectively rolled their eyes and said, is this idiot serious? Because literally the last 18 months, medical professionals have been screaming at Boris Johnson, COVID is not the flu. And then as soon as he puts Javid in charge of health, he's coming out and saying, yeah, we just need to live with it like the flu, which sounds suspiciously like anti-lockdown, anti-vax protesters' motto. You'd almost suggest that there was some kind of a theme going on here. What did you make of that, Mike? Did you see anything about that?
Yeah. No, to be honest, I didn't really know what to make of it. Now, I like you say, you'd have seen that, and you'd have heard that, you'd have read that, whatever, and you'd have rolled your eyes and fuck.
This
fucking
again.
Why is this pillock? Now it's just Boris just gone from bad to, I won't say bad to worse, but I don't think, in my opinion, there isn't any worse than fucking wank sock, but bad to just as bad. You know, is there an ulterior? What is the reason behind that particular appointment? And yeah, and I didn't really know what to make of the kind of the stuff he was coming out with, because I guess more than concentrating on what he was saying, I guess I was trying to think of why.
Yeah.
So I kind of caught up on the right. Okay, so regardless of what my opinion is or what the general consensus even might be. Why is he, what is the, they've all got, what politicians are like. Could be any politician talking about any topic, and their stance is, or what they say is based on their stance, and it's all ulterior motives and a general kind of bigger goal that they're angling towards, or there's a reason why they're saying things that some of them for a fact they don't even believe, and so and you just, it's all, you try, sometimes you get caught up on why is this, why is he saying, what's the end goal here, and that's what I was trying to think. I was like, well, why is he chosen to publicly kind of hold the stance that he has now at this time? Why is that the route he's chosen to go down? And I mean, I'd actually be interested to hear what your thoughts are on that, because I've kind of drawn a blank.
Well, I've been seriously worried for a while, but it looks like they might be making their big play to, as we know, has been their plan for a while, to effectively turn the NHS into a private company, privatise healthcare. They've been inching towards it. They've tried to find ways around it. David Cameron, with the Health and Social Care Bill, effectively said, oh no, it's still public, but we're now going to contract loads of aspects out to private companies, usually ones that donate to the Conservative Party. And in some cases, some of those companies actually just pulled out. And then the public sector had to step in to cover something that they'd agreed to do. So you can see how dangerous it is. But there's a new bill that they're trying to push, and they're trying to push that it's a really good thing because it's reversing a lot of the tendering crap that came with Cameron's reforms. The problem is it's all new shit that they're putting on the NHS. Having private healthcare people on the boards of the NHS. Why do you need that? You think, what's the reason for that? It sounds like a fox in the hen house. And with Sajid Javid, knowing how he operates, he used to work for Goldman Sachs. He's one of the Britannia Unchained idiots who thinks everything would be great if we just deregulated everything and, made ourselves more like Singapore. So the stars seem to be aligned in a very ugly way. So yeah, I'm very, very concerned about the direction of travel. In terms of what he said specifically about, we've got to live with it like the flu, which is completely medically illiterate. But it just seems to be just pandering again to the far right of the Tory party. It's just like, yeah, we're just going to concentrate on the economy now. Now, I will say at this stage, I have people similar age to me, think a lot of the same things as me, who would hear that and go, fantastic, let's get back to normal. Now, on a personal level, that is completely understandable. I don't think anyone is an idiot for wanting everything to go back to, to be fair, back to normal is unsustainable. We're literally killing the planet. But in terms of back to your normal, going to the gym, meeting your friends, hitting the nightclubs, going to festivals, wholesome stuff, just stuff that you really enjoy doing that makes it worth getting out of bed for. That is completely normal, and I completely agree with everyone who wants that to be happening. The problem is when someone like Javid is telling you that, he's not saying everything's okay now. What he's saying is, we vaccinated all the Tory voters, and I've been vaccinated, so fucking young people, whatever, don't give a shit about them. Because as me and Mike have consistently argued, if you look at the actual facts and what the medical advisors are saying, what we should do is take advantage of how fast the vaccination program is going. We're so close. If we gave it another month, I'm not saying that some things shouldn't be loosened up, but we'll come on to this in a minute. But the idea that we should stop wearing face masks after the 19th is just so fucking stupid. I can't get over it. But it just, we're so close. We've vaccinated the vast majority of the population with their first dose. we vaccinated, I think, coming up to 2/3 of the population with the second, but there's still loads of young people who haven't been vaccinated, and as we know, young people are more likely to potentially contract long COVID. And this is like a serious illness that could affect them for years. We don't know exactly how serious long COVID is yet. We just know it afflicts people with things like brain fog, chronic fatigue. Basically, it would make you unemployable for a period of time, effectively. Not to mention, not being able to party or anything, the kind of things you would love to do as a young person. We've seen, Mike, we've seen articles where you've seen women in their early 20s who are obsessed with running marathons and stuff, and they contract long COVID and it hits them like a hammer. They're laid out, chronic fatigue. They find it difficult to do anything that they generally enjoy doing, and they don't know when it's going to go away. So I'm not saying that we should keep everything restricted forever, because who would want that? I want to go to the festival that I've got booked in August, of course, and I want other people to enjoy festivals and things like that, and I want hopefully people to enjoy England winning the European Championship. But the point is, the young have been like basically sodomized with no lube here, haven't they? Like it's hit them harder than anyone. As much as we malign them, sometimes they deserve to be maligned, because the boomers are one of the groups who are most. Actually, no, I don't think that's right. I'm not going to say that because that might be fake news. But boomers basically have been prioritized, and we all agreed that that was probably right, because boomers in the older age group more likely to potentially be fatally hit by COVID, or at least have serious stretches in hospital. We didn't want our parents and our grandparents to kick the bucket early, so we all agreed that that was the best thing to do: prioritize them and then work your way down, and vulnerable people, etc. But that was a contract, that was a social contract, that we all agreed that we were doing it for each other. And if we just say fuck it now, what that's saying is that young people who have missed school, have been ripped off with university tuition fees despite only being able to do it online, who've missed their 18th birthday celebrations, who've missed their 21st birthday celebrations. These people who've missed so much and suffered so much at a time in their lives where nothing seems certain, and they're still making their way in the world and making new friends and allies and girlfriends and boyfriends and whatever. We're now saying, after all their sacrifice, fuck it, we've vaccinated most of us, let's get on with it. And the worst thing is, those young people might say, cool, because they genuinely think that that's in their best interest, but it's not. Do you get what I'm saying, Mike?
I do. It is what it is, though, now, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
I've almost maybe lockdown, or any form of lockdown and the restrictions that obviously are imposed coming to an end now is at the right time, in the respect of I'm almost exhausted trying to second guess like motivation and seeing all of the different ways that generally the government can fuck people over, or and I'm not just talking about decisions around lockdown or which restrictions do we lift. Fuck people over with regards to just sticking a big two fingers up at them and saying we're going to give, this is the biggest thing that's happened in many people's lifetimes, and our response is going to be to give billions of pounds to our mates, things like that, for example. And it's just, that's a big fucking two fingers up to everyone, and all these different things just coming together just to. I'm almost, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that these types of things don't always happen in any year, regardless of what's going on globally or even nationally, because they do. Of course they do. It's just, this is whether you like it or not, whether you're wherever your political allegiances lie, however much you are into generally, or you keep tabs on politics or the decisions that are made around you or whatever it is, wherever you sit on that spectrum, wherever you stand, wherever you lie, this affects every single person. So this is something that in some way, shape or form does matter to everyone. And I'm almost just exhausted with, and kind of just with all the ways in which they just continually stick their fingers up at various different people. Sometimes it's everyone, sometimes it's a group of people, sometimes it's the NHS, and I don't know how much more of that kind of bullshit. Let's go back to their normal bullshit. Let's because it's doing that sort of stuff normally is slimy and just immoral, and the reason that a lot of people hate politicians. But doing it at this time, it just feels even worse. It just feels like,
yeah, I know what you're saying.
Makes you feel when you think about it really, and you understand it to any kind of, even maybe kind of basic level, it just makes you feel ill. Just like, what is actually happening? And with the lifting of all the restrictions and normal coming back in or whatever it is, at least the kind of, it won't be a big fucking all the shit they do aren't going to be big COVID fuck yous anymore. So,
yeah,
I don't know.
I see what you're saying. So Mike, there was a big announcement, I think it was today, from the Fatberg, when he said, I mean, this is how stupid it's come. We all knew that they were hoping that Freedom Day, in inverted commas, was only just going to be briefly postponed until the 19th of July. So that doesn't come as any shock. I think what again made me roll my eyes, where almost every decision they take is too late or misguided or just plain fucking stupid, where you can't see the logic. And this is another example. So 19th of July, almost all restrictions are going to be removed. Now, as we said before, we kind of expected this. Also, it's going to be very sad because that would effectively mean the end of lockdown large. So, sorry guys, lockdown would effectively be over. But Mike, one thing is, do you really think it's a clever idea to just say no more social distancing or masks immediately on the 19th of July?
No, well, not really. But one thing I would say, and I don't want to sound like fucking Bojo when I say this, but if when then?
What do you mean when?
We have this whole, everything that we've been going through for months now has been that we have had a phased. We have been phasing it out. We have been phasing out restrictions here and letting things start happening again. Gradually and gradually and gradually. At some point, the last lifting has to happen. And I'm not, listen, do not take me for a fucking Tory sympathiser or a Bojo crony, but I think he said, like, if we don't do it now, when we've done so much to kind of, then when are we going to do it? And
would the argument not be, Mike, that surely we would do it when over 85% of the population are fully vaccinated, i.e. herd immunity? Would that not be a better idea?
Yeah, I mean,
wait for that to be confirmed before saying that masks no longer have to be worn in indoor settings.
Possibly. Yeah. No, I agree. The other way to look at it is we've done so much good work. We've got so fucking close. Why do it now at all?
Yeah.
Well, if anything, why change anything?
Do you know what? I would probably think this was an okay idea, providing there was a massive cash injection into the NHS, particularly like a decent pay raise, maybe 5-10%. I know 12.5 has been stated. Let's give them like at least a 6% pay rise, and additional funding to clear the backlog of appointments and surgery and everything that's had to be postponed because of COVID, and all that money again to be used because of all the extra people who will be hospitalized because of new. So the argument is, Mike, it's not that by the way, I've seen the statistics. The good news is it's been categorically proven now that the enormous spike in infections now is not leading to a huge spike in hospitalizations or deaths. So the link has not been completely broken, but it's mostly been severed. So that's great. So that means hospitals aren't going to be absolutely overwhelmed. But at the same time, like the saying goes, we are risking new variants by having it spread amongst unvaccinated people. Particularly if we start, unlocking travel. I mean, luckily that decision will probably be taken away from us, because I think a lot of countries will be like, no, we're not taking anyone from the UK unless they're all vaccinated. So maybe that decision is taken away from us. But, knowing Johnson, he'll still be allowing loads of people over here, whether they're vaccinated or not. So they could bring in, again, new variants.
Yeah, I mean, you would hope that we'd learned our lesson on that one, wouldn't you?
You would. But will we? Are we gonna have to reinvigorate lockdown large round about autumn time? As much as I've enjoyed doing this with you, Mike, I'd really prefer that we wouldn't have to restart lockdown large.
Yeah, well, let's hope not. But around that time they're talking about they talked about you getting third injections around that time for people, haven't they now?
Boosters. Yeah.
So,
it's amazing, isn't it? Sometimes, Mike, I forget about it, but sometimes you think back and you think, we spent £37 billion on test and trace that just vanished into the ether. We spent hundreds and hundreds of millions on vaccines. We're probably going to spend hundreds of millions more on vaccines. We spaffed all this money on PPE that didn't work. If all of that money had just been diverted to the NHS and everything left to the NHS, how much better would we be off? You could argue we'd have probably been unlocked already by now. Everything would be good. Instead, we're biting our lip like, I'm not sure this is a great idea.
Yes.
But there you go. That's what happens when you have someone like Johnson in charge, unfortunately. You put a chimpanzee in charge, and then you have to expect he's just going to fling shit at everyone. Did you hear as well that the Queen has given an award to the NHS?
No.
I think it was. I think I read it right. Was it like? I think it was like a Victoria Cross or something. Where was it? Let me see if I can find it. Queen Awards NHS. See what it says. Yeah, the George Cross. Queen awards the George Cross to NHS staff for the NHS staff's courage and compassion. So that's effectively been awarded to the entire NHS. I'm not saying they don't deserve it. They obviously do. But what they deserve probably more is a decent pay rise and like adequate funding to cope with the massive backlog of operations and other medical procedures that have had to take a backseat because of COVID. Probably a lot of money should go in for trauma treatment for some of the staff the conditions that they've had to work in. But instead, we could have the Queen give a little award and the Fatberg do a performative clapping like a seal, and he'll reckon that'll be enough.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think I think that I just don't understand. Now, okay, so I personally, each company's different, right? Each company's different, and they're doing their own things for their own reasons. They've all got their own balance sheets, etc., etc. They trade in different areas. They do different things. Whatever, cool. So it'd be easy. My point is, it might be easy for me to be bitter, as I've had my own pay frozen.
Yeah.
So I get no inflation pay rise. Nothing. Not 1%. 0. Which
is effectively a pay cut.
Yes. Yeah. And after the kind of, I think is a big fucking kick in the dick, to be honest.
Kick in the dick.
After the kind of shit that we've been through, but
yeah,
I couldn't agree more that I just don't understand why they wouldn't be okay. So you don't. Yeah, you said 12.5% or whatever's been thrown around as a pay rise for the NHS. It doesn't have to be that, but why not? Well, why not at least fucking inflation for a start? But why not? 4-5%. Why not? I don't understand. I can't.
Bear in mind as well, this comes in the context of them effectively having their pay frozen for about a decade. So the reason that I think 12.5% was suggested was because effectively they've had pay cuts for the last decade.
Okay, yeah. But I mean, I think, one thing is, making up for every decision that's been made every year for the last decade. That each of those decisions would have been made, for whether it's bullshit or not, for their own reasons, and it would have been, decided annually, but to make up for that in view of what they've done is something. But at least start now. At least maybe just acknowledge, like, okay. Even if they don't, that's what I'm saying. Even if they don't make up for that stuff and give them that pay rise, just at least start now. Say, okay, yeah, you didn't get your pay's been frozen. You've been having pay cuts continuously for the last 10 years, whatever it is, 10, 11, 12 years. But we can't do that to you anymore. At least this year, we can't. I'm not going to make a guarantee. I'm not going to try and make up for everything we've done previously, or because those decisions have been their own decisions made in their own time for their own reasons. But this year, you're going to get 5%. Next year will be next year, but this year you are having a 5% pay rise. Forget anything else, and I'm not saying that we should forget anything else and everything else, and that they don't deserve for us to consider these things. But I'm just saying, even if we don't, and you just take it in isolation, you know, this. I don't know. I can't understand how they have the cheek to not do that for them almost. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the sad thing for me is that,
I don't understand why is there not more. Why is there not more outrage as well?
well, this was what I was going to say, that there's not more rancor. I mean, ultimately, the reason they do it is because they know they can get away with it. Whereas if the public genuinely love the NHS the way they say they do, then they'd stop saying that they approve of the government and that they would vote for them if there was an election tomorrow. I find it baffling because, aside from the obvious attempts to privatise it that they are continuing to plough ahead with, despite the massive groundswell of opposition to it, I just think, I read somewhere recently the waiting list for operations has now reached 1 million people. 1 million people are waiting for operations, and it just makes me think, when I hear people say, you know what the most important thing in life is? Your health. Nothing else really matters when it comes down to it. And I'm like, well, it clearly isn't, because people say, oh, I love the NHS and whatever, and then they'll say, I approve of what the government's doing when it's decimating it. So I don't really understand people's thought patterns, unless it's, again, being led by the nose by the media, where it's like so many distractions are thrown at them that they think, they manage to think something else is more important than staying healthy. I don't know. But yeah, it does depress me, demoralizes me a little bit, but
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just the big chunk of the population who, maybe a big chunk of the typically younger population, who don't really value the NHS as much. They'll jump on a bandwagon and whatever else, but they don't value it as much. Maybe they feel like, because they don't need it right now as much. They're younger, they're fitter, they're healthier,
I see
or whatever.
what you're saying,
and then you've got the other side of the coin, where you've got again, typically a slightly older generation of and people who, particularly people who are inclined to vote for the current government, who are generally better off, more wealthy, and can afford their own private healthcare. So
I don't know about that. What I would say, Mike, is I think those people are more likely to believe what they read in newspapers and see on the BBC, which I think is the big difference. I think
which people?
The older generation, that they get their information solely from the legacy media, the stuff that they've grown up with. Younger people are more likely to look outside the box, across the internet, at different news sources. So they're more likely to be able to see behind the bullshit. That's the way I see it, because I get what you mean. People are more affluent at that age, but the bottom line is, I don't think a lot of them could afford private healthcare. I think they'd like to think they could. What baffles me as well is, if you look at particularly, say, 2017, where Labour were very close to potentially winning the election, if a few seats had gone a few hundred votes the other way. If you look at that, the only age group that was not dominant, voting more for Labour than the Conservatives, was the retired and the elderly. But the thing about the retired and the elderly is they most need the NHS, and they most need social care, which Labour were effectively making noises about turning into like an NHS. But they vote for the Conservatives, who make no promises at all about social care. In fact, they just think everyone should just pay for it themselves. And that's when you get the situation like we got in the care homes. That was an inevitable result. Matt Hancock should be facing criminal charges for it, but at the same time, that was inevitable because of the way care homes are set up. That they, there's minimum wage staff there. They don't have the time or the training to take additional precautions, and you had the disaster that we had in the care homes. And we've all seen the undercover reports of you know, care home staff abusing residents or not watching residents properly and whatever. And obviously those people are scum, but at the same time, you're going to attract those people if you pay them next to nothing. You know, to get good people, to get good trained people who care about their job, you have to pay them a fair salary, which doesn't happen in the private sector. So, you know, to me, it's a no-brainer. I can't believe it hasn't happened already, but I know why it hasn't, because of the Murdoch press and the Mail and all that ecosystem. But to me, it makes complete sense, Mike, that the NHS should effectively join with social care. We should all pay taxation and have all of our healthcare and our social care covered. So then you don't get to old age and have to sell your house and basically pretty much sell everything you've got, other than, I understand, you know, you can keep a few thousand to give to your children, but effectively sell everything you've got to pay for your private social care, to which you'll probably not be looked after very well. And let's not forget as well, Boris Johnson, you know, before the general election in 2019, I think said on TV that he had a plan for social care. 18 months down the line, he's still not given us what his supposed plan is.
I mean, there have been other things going on.
Yeah, like the ex-health secretary potentially deliberately killing loads of people in care homes with his policies. Maybe that was the big plan. He just couldn't. He had to like say the quiet part quiet and the loud part loud. It's like, so what
it was.
So yeah, so what he said was, "Don't worry, I've got a fantastic plan for care homes." And then when he's off the mic, he's like, "Yeah, so we're going to discharge lots of COVID patients into them and thin the herd." Yes, so brilliant plan, all coming down the line. Don't worry about it. So there we are, Mike. We're 2 weeks away from effectively throwing caution to the wind and saying, "Fuck it." I don't know about you, but I will still be wearing a mask. And I know the most irritating part of it was, I remember ministers were asked about it, said, "Oh, do you think it's a good idea for people to stop wearing masks?" And then they'd say things like, "Well, we think people will make responsible personal choices." And then you roll your eyes and you go, two things about that. Number one, nothing that's ever happened during this pandemic suggests anyone makes responsible personal choices. And number two, I mean, look at the health secretary, for instance, the ex-health secretary. And number two, masks protect other people, not the wearers. And we are encouraged not to give a shit about anyone else. So why would any selfish cunt wear a mask anymore? Now, hopefully I'll be okay, because I'll be wearing a special mask. I have a mask already that's an anti-pollution mask. So that will not only protect other people from me, but it has a big filter and everything, so I won't be breathing in other people's viral load. Obviously, you could still potentially take it in through your mucous membranes, but it's about viral load, isn't it? So even if you came into minor contact with someone who had it, it's unlikely to give it to you unless you're exposed for a particular period of time. But I'm still going to wear masks, at least until I've been double vaccinated. I don't know about you. Are you just going to cast them off the minute you're allowed to?
Well, I was thinking about giving you my viral load, yeah.
I'm surprised. Yeah, I'm surprised you haven't come out with that before. I
am, actually. It hasn't taken me this long.
No. But seriously, are you planning on just saying fuck it and ripping the mask off the second you're allowed to?
I mean, have they actually said that that's what the situation is?
I believe it's been confirmed that from the 19th of July, wearing a mask will be a choice.
Okay. Well, that's not what I saw, but maybe that is the case then. Wait, I was under the impression that they hadn't really said for definite whether you have to do masks and things like that. Like, as in, like, they would open. Yeah,
no, it says, it's been confirmed on The Guardian. Rules on mask wearing and social distancing to end. So,
well, that's the government rules. It'd be interesting to see what different establishments, different companies, different businesses, what their stance is on it.
Well, unless they've got security outside, how are they going to police it?
Well, no, I'm not saying that they should, they can enforce this to the masses, but they can still have a, it's like when they say like no smoking on the premises, but if they don't have security, how are they going to enforce it? Like they can still.
Yeah, but I mean, it's slightly different, isn't it? Because it's very unlikely that half a dozen people are going to come in and light up cigarettes, but people could, half a dozen people could easily walk into a shop in the space of a few seconds. None of them.
Also, that was a bad example, also because that's actually illegal. Whereas the mask thing, yeah. But you know what my point is. I don't know. They might still. It'd be interesting to see what happens, and
I guess we can discuss it more next week because obviously it doesn't come into force yet, so we won't spend too long talking about it now. Anything else, Mike, that you've sort of heard or been aware of over the last week that might change our perspective for next time? I don't know if there've been any other big stories.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think we've covered that off nicely. So
okay.
I guess all that's left to say is to reiterate our message of make sure you like, subscribe, hit the little bell. You can ring my bell. So YouTube it will holler at you when we've got some new content. So obviously you can watch it all up. Watch everything we've done before. But yeah, like, subscribe, comment, interact with us.
We're big
tell
boys.
us what you think.
We can take
Don't
it.
be shy. Huh?
We're big boys. We can take it.
Yeah.
Tell us what you think.
Yeah.
Unfiltered.
Yeah. Don't be shy. Get involved. Tell us what you think, even if it is just you're a pair of cunts. To be fair.
You're half right. Yeah. Fucking knew that was coming.
It'd be hard to argue with it. So yeah. Feel free just to put anything you like on there. Any random kind of show us what you're pissed with. Whatever. I'm sure Aaron will oblige.
Yes, Mike. Yeah. Have you
but
finished?
No, do share it as well. That's the big thing. Share it with your friends, your family, your grandparents, assuming they're not easily offended.
Yeah, your yoga teacher, your dog handler, personal chef. That weirdo who jacks off at the bus stop.
No, you don't need to share it with me. I already get it.
Very good. Right, you finished, Mike?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's covered. So
we'll see you next time. And until next time, this has been Late Night Large saying, what would your mum say if she saw you doing that?